44 cars came out to play yesterday and kept us enthralled from the start of the hour all the way through to the finish, with class battles right to the checkered flag. Looking for more of the same today. Slightly grey weather conditions, but still a very warmish spring day. And of course, the drivers who started yesterday will be the second drivers today. A 1 hour race. The cars can pit between the 25th and 35th minute of the race. The order had been scrambled at the top. We've got a great mix of cars, which is the very essence of the burgeoning GT4 category. Unfortunately, one of the cars is one of the Celisla Mercedes, not making its way to the grid. Number 32 car is trickling past the grid in the pit lane. Meanwhile, all the front cars are coming to the sharp end of the grid, and what a mix of cars we have. A Ginetta on pole alongside a McLaren, then an Audi, then a BMW, just showing how GT4 is attracting more and more manufacturers, and the level of presentation of the cars on the grid year on year gets better as the numbers grow as well. And the racing, very, very dynamic. These cars move around a fair bit more than the GT3 big brothers, if you will. Less air on them. There is the HHC Motorsport Ginetta on pole position. Yesterday started by Stuart Middleton, and the race finished off going through to third place by Will Tregurtha, but Tregurtha is the driver at the wheel at the start today. These drivers are pairing who won the British GT4 Championship last year in a Ginetta with HHC Motorsport, so team, drivers, car, all know each other very well indeed. The other car on the front row, also a similar livery, white with pale blue markings on it, is the McLaren from Equipe Verschure. Finlay Hutchison, the Scottish driver, will start today and hand over to the driver. You can see just past the car, that's Ricardo van der Ende. And then we go back to row 2, the number 77, Racing 1 Audi, Patrick Samperini, sharing that with Hungarian racer Jaban Moore, and it's Patrick who will be kicking off today. And that is in the Pro-Am class, and in fact came second in class yesterday. So 3 classes in the race, the Silver class, the Pro-Am class, and the Am class as well. That's the best place of the Audis, and certainly that R8 LMS becoming increasingly popular in GT4 Championship racing. Then if one moves to the pit wall side for the second row, it's the best of the BMW M4s, likewise gaining in popularity. Simon Knapp will start off for MDM Motorsport. He's sharing that car with fellow Dutch racer Max Cobalt. So again, just to stress, 4 manufacturers down on the grid. But let's go down to the grid, because we have Felix van der Loden, a YouTuber with Dakota.
Felix, how exciting it is to see a YouTuber gamer gone straight to racing with no previous history of racing. What is it like to be on the GT4 grid this morning?
Oh, it's really exciting. Like, I was really, I didn't know what to expect before yesterday. For the first time being in the race, and then the grid is packed with 44 cars, and then going into the first turn, that's crazy. And it was really working out quite good yesterday, so I'm really looking forward for the next race today.
Is it tougher than you thought it would be?
Oh yes, it's so much tougher in the car. Like, I was shaking when I got out of the car. It was so hot in the car, and yeah, definitely really exhausting.
And what's your YouTube channel called?
Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/Felix Leiden.
Great, and you're going to be looking for a win today?
Oh, not a win, but we try step by step. And yeah, just this is a learned season for me, but it's feeling really great so far.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done, Dakota, for getting all the way down to 30th on the grid, and that Team GT McLaren will be handled hopefully by Felix van der Leyden in the second part of the race, but his teammate Bernhard Laber will be kicking off. As you can see, it's a big grid. Being 30th on the grid is nowhere near the back. 44 cars coming out to play. Now, on the third row of the grid, we move down to the second of the BMWs. That is Stefan Lemeret, 3Y Technology, Belgian racer on home ground, sharing with Akhil Rabindra, a racer from India who's just moving across largely from single-seaters. A little bit of bad luck, didn't get to finish yesterday, so looking to atone here on Sunday morning, and conditions are very different. It was very warm yesterday afternoon, much cooler at the moment. Bit of cloud cover starting to burn off. Good crowd of people in at Zolder today for this racing festival weekend. And then the second of the Racing 1 Audis on row 3, that's Marcus Lungstrass and Hamza Owega, and Lungstrass will kick off. They're also in the Pro-Am class. You can see on the windscreen the Pro-Am sticker on the number 16 Audi. Ginetta G55's got 1 on pole position for HHC Motorsport, but CMR French team have run some very good 55s as well. That's Pierre-Alexandre Jean, but being started today by Stéphane Tribudini. We always get the flip. The drivers who start the first race a second in the second race. And some of the driver pairings very equal, others less so. But through the course of the season, you see a lot of drivers making major progress. Now, the best place of the AMG Mercedes is entered by Celica Racing Team. Sam de Jong sharing with Belgian racer Gregory Eichmans. Gregory will take the second leg today. So just look how many different makes of car are up at the front end of the grid. Three-pointed star, 3 Mercedes entered by the Celica Racing Team. This one in the silver class and the sister cars in the AM class. Going back another row, we move to the car that won yesterday, started by Nikolai Moller-Madsen, then handed over to the less experienced GT4 racer, Milan Donci. In fact, he's only just joined the championship this year. That took victory from pole position, was pressed hard in the early parts of the race, then helped somewhat by a safety car period later in the race with more experienced GT4 racers wanting to be able to get up to Milan, but Milan did everything he needed to do, and he was a very happy bunny up on the podium yesterday afternoon, on the top step, most importantly. Now, Nicky Leutwiler, running in the AM class, is one of 3 drivers in this race who's doing the whole thing himself. He doesn't come into the pits and hand over to anyone else. He has to come in and wait. There's a mandatory minimum pit stop time, has to sit there and then go out. And he was very well placed up on the podium in the AM class yesterday afternoon. To reiterate, yesterday a 1-hour race, this morning a 1-hour race. 25 minutes in, the pit lane opens, the pit window opens, and they've got a 10-minute period in which they must make their mandatory pit stop. And as pointing out, in the case of Nicky Leutwiler, no driver change. Also, Louis-Philippe Sonnen running on his own, and one other driver, I'll get to him in a minute. But now we're starting to see the cars in all their beauty. And there is the Pro-Am pole, car number 77, Patrick Zamperini and more. They're right at the sharp end. They're 3rd on the grid in the Racing One Audi. So Racing One joining the championship this year and certainly making quite a splash with 2 of their cars sitting, well, both their cars sitting in the front 3 rows of the grid. Those are the red, black and white Audis you can see down there. A little bit more white on the car on the second row. But it's the Ginetta on pole position for HHC Motorsport, and alongside the Equipe Vauxhall McLaren, 2 white and pale blue cars. As we ride on the Segway up the middle of the grid, just admire the variety of manufacturers up near the front end as more and more people come to play in GT4 racing. Some with an eye on moving further up in years ahead if they do well, up to GT3 and the Blancpain Cup. But at the moment, they're very happy to be out on this grid that is increasingly competitive. Many cars, and also the gap between first and about 10th gets closer and closer and closer, which is just how we like it to be. Sun not shining as much as it was yesterday, but it's actually in the space the last few minutes just starting to burn its way through. This race could be run in full sunshine by the end of the hour. But the final moments before the cars head off on their formation lap, nerves starting to rise, because for some of these drivers, they wouldn't have started yesterday's race. They'd have taken over after the pit stop, and the start a very different procedure indeed. And in fact, Felix von der Laden, who we heard from on the grid, the YouTube gamer who had his first race yesterday, he took the start. I think he's probably going to be quite keen to be doing the second leg today, just because the field will be a little bit more broken up, so he can get in and find his craft, find his form as he learns. What a car to learn in, a 570S McLaren. Porsche Cayman's always a staple of the championship, as are KTM Crossbows. And to see the 22 KTM all the way back down the grid, Laura Kreiheimer will start, but Reinhard Koffler really had that flying right at the sharp end of the field yesterday. Aston Martin's in the mix as well, not so close to the front this year, just showing the progress as more new manufacturers come into play. Chevrolet Camaro V8, well, great to have that there from V8 Racing, 2 of those. And there we have the last row of the grid. And the Street Art Racing Aston Martin, that was a faller yesterday, but in snatches through the race, it was running very well indeed in its distinctive silver and multicolour top livery. But up at the front end of the grid, it's Audis, BMWs, and most importantly, the front row is McLaren and Ginetta as they pace off on their formation lap. 44 cars coming out to play for an hour of racing. They kept it very clean yesterday, a few little thrills and spills, nothing too much though. Looks everybody getting away cleanly. Yesterday, one of the Racing One Audis did not make a clean start on the formation lap and had to then take the start of the race from the very rear of the grid, which gave it much more of a mountain to climb than it would have wanted. But the last few cars just moving away from the grid. Oh dear, one of the Camaros not able to get away. That's the number 9 example. Few rows off the back of the grid. That should be Luke Brahms at the wheel. Has got going the big rumble. And the last few cars all the way back to the number 60 Aston Martin from Academy Motorsports. rumbling away. That's Fiona James at the wheel, and she will hand over to Matt Nicol-Jones. That had a mechanical problem yesterday, stopped at pit lane entry, got going again later in the race, but hoping for a clean run today. Not so much heat in the tyres today. Yes, the temperature is climbing a bit, but it was very warm yesterday afternoon. Let's take a look at the grid. It's the HHC Ginetta on pole position. Will Tregurtha starting ahead of Finlay Hutchinson in the Keith Vachon McLaren. Patrick Zamperini, the Racing One Audi. Simon Knapp, the MDM Motorsport BMW. Stefan Lemeret waving the Belgian flag for 3-wide technology. And Marcus Lungstrass in the second of the Racing One Audis. Then Stefan Tribadini, the CMR Ginetta, and the Cellizlar Racing Team starting in 8th place with Sam de Jong at the wheel. And now just enjoy the cars and look at the run through on the grid order. 44 cars came out to play, and 44 cars are bound to entertain. Zolder circuit, not the widest in the world, 4 chicanes around the lap that can sort them out, but turn 4 for many was a problem turn yesterday. You try and really pick up some speed for the blast behind the paddock at the back of the pits, and just get tempted to run a little too deep into the corner, and there's a great big gravel trap waiting there to take any fallers. Through the Villeneuve chicane, which is effectively turns 8, 9 and 10, halfway around the back of the circuit, and then into Tel Amenboch. Of course, that was one big double right-hand swoop in the old days, but since the mid-80s, of course, we've had the Gilles Villeneuve chicane. And drivers, if they take out that cone, you can see just in the middle of the corner, they do get into trouble. That is there for a reason. It is there to stop drivers from cutting the chicane. Number 26, Ginetta, starting on 34th position. That was right at the sharp end yesterday, but Eric Mouet has a lot to learn. He's learning his craft, but David Logier, the driver who'll take over, is a real hot shoe. So look for that coming up the order in the second half of the race. Field bunching up, and still we have the names on the sheet. In fact, it looks as though we might be starting with 42 cars today. Yes, 2 fallers. We had 44 yesterday. I was just looking to see how many had made it out, but 42 certainly a big step up from last year. Year on year, the GT4 European Series grows in numbers coming down towards the final chicane. We will be having a rolling start, so checking all the queue is in 2x2 formation, and the pole starter, Will Tregurtha, is on the left-hand side of the track, the right-hand side of your screen. He will be the one who chooses when to drop the hammer. He cannot be overtaken before the start-finish line, so that will be in the mind of Finlay Hutchinson in the number 10 McLaren alongside its 2x2. Waiting until the cars are coming through. They'll be looking for the lights on the starting gantry, and when they go, Will Tregurtha will be putting the hammer down. He's already got half a hatch ahead, waiting. It's a long hold, waiting for the rest of the field to come through the final corner. There'll be a crescendo of noise. On the start line they go, almost bunched 2, 3 abreast as the BMW tried to get in on the action, but the Racing One Audi up the inside. Oh, it's a big squeeze, but in fact they seem to be going through in grid formation. But the McLaren is being pushed wide. The second Racing One Audi is pushed wide, but not into the gravel trap. That is the clue. Great start there from Will Tregurtha in the HHC Motorsport. Ginetta, the Borusan turquoise BMW, the car entered from Turkey, putting in a really, really good start. A few people thought they gained a bit of an advantage, but in fact, top 5, 6 cars running as they should be. Ginetta gaining a place from about 7th on the grid. That's Stefan Tribudini. But up front, it's the poleman at the front. Patrick Zamperini pushing very hard in the first of the Racing One Audis. 3 abreast, Autolando Sport Porsche up the inside, and well, he made the move stick. Very, very tight. Very, very tight indeed. Cellizlar Mercedes lost a little bit of ground. That's being challenged in the early part of the first lap. But for poleman Will Tregurtha, he's already almost a second clear. But importantly, he's got 2 chicanes behind him without having been troubled. Further back, though, they don't have that luxury. They're 2 abreast through the chicane, which makes for fantastic TV. Ali Turkan going very well in that number 12 BMW from Borusan Automotive Motorsport in Turkey. Great to have more teams joining the championship this year. And I must say, 42 cars getting through turn 1. Oh, we've got a waved yellow flag, so therefore someone probably has had a little spill down at turn 12. It looks like they've gone around the corner and clouted the wall on the other side. It's one of the Racing One Audis. It's the one that started in 6th position. That's Marcus Lungstrass. Has got to do it all from pretty much the back of the grid. He'd held 6th place around the first part of the opening lap. Clearly put the power down just too soon, going out of turn 12, and round he looped. The race order, it's down to half a second clear. Zamperini has gone ahead of Hutchinson around the second half of that opening lap. So we've got the Racing One dichotomy. One of their cars goes for a spin, the other one moves up from 3rd into 2nd place. So Zamperini putting on a charge and closing in around the second half of that lap on our race leader. Number 5, yesterday's winner, across the start-finish line in, he's hard to find, he's way down the order, 10th place for Milan Donci. In fact, he lost one position. I thought he'd lost more than that. So in fact, lost 2 and then was given 1 when the Lungstrasse Audi went for a spin. BMW very much in the mix this year, running in 4th and 5th positions there, entered by 2 different teams. Still Wiltshire Goethe leading there. Coming over the top is Patrick Zamperini. Finley Hutchinson lost that 2nd position. In fact, he nearly lost it at the opening corner. Somehow managed to hold on as the cars bunched up through turn 1 as they then headed towards turn 2. That's more like it, 2x2 over the Butter Crest and down to the Villeneuve chicane. The silver, black and yellow Mercedes from Lechner Racing. Walter Lechner, such a fan of sports car racing, has been entering cars, probably this is about his 4th decade. And the number 2 Mercedes looking very good too. That went pretty well yesterday for Lippert Motorsport. And as with yesterday, the thick of the action appears to be just outside the top 10. Not that it's not close at the front though, it's just there 1 by 1 rather than 2 by 2. And it's still Wiltshire Goethe leading, very tight behind. Patrick Zamperini and Finley Hutchinson, having been pushed back, is not being dropped in third place. So the top 3 covered by a whisker over a second. Then a tiny gap back to Simon Knapp and Stefan Lemeray in 5th place. The number 37, 3-wide technology BMW. And yesterday's winning car, Milan Donci, fighting very hard with Stefan Tribudini, and in fact has now got his nose in front, and they're being pushed incredibly hard from behind. Number 87, the McLaren from Team GT. And at the moment, at the wheel of that, we've got Nico Rindlisbacher, Swiss racer. So really, really fierce action. But Milan Donci, powered by yesterday's victory that he shared, really pushing Stefan Tribudini very hard, but the Ginetta racer managing to hold on to what is 9th place at the moment. Super, super competitive, and we're not yet 5 minutes into the race. Milan Donci looking on the outside, but into the Thierry Boots and chicane. No go on the way in, but a mistake. Too late on the brakes for the Ginetta. He had to scrub momentum by getting it sideways, and the Audi will be on the right position to get the corner when they turn into the Villeneuve chicane. The McLaren fancied its chances as well, trying to sneak by at the same time, but Nico Rindlisbacher will have to try again. The 87 McLaren still tucked in behind. A pair of BMWs tucked in behind him. In turn, it's 1-1-1. That's Razvan Umberescu and number 8, Kim Burgertz. Super, super tight. Gap between 1st and 2nd, by the way, 0.593 of a second. So it really levelled out. Slight response there from Wiltshire Goethe in the lead of the race. Nico Rindlisbacher continues to look to try and find a way by Stefan Tribudini's Ginetta, no go. Number 4, that went for a bit of a spin yesterday, going very well this morning in the hands of Helmut Rödig. He'll be handing over later to George Bernsteiner. And the bright day-glow yellow number 6 Audi, the easiest one to pick out in the field. Jörg Wiebahn started that yesterday. Jean-Louis Jasper has the honours this morning. How close would he like to be? In fact, battle between 2 Phoenix Racing Audis here. And that's so good. Why not stay with this for a while and watch the battle? Jean-Louis Jasper, well, he had to back off a little bit because the sister car, the number 4, wanted to take the line and did exactly that. Moved back over. Good little line there from Helmut Rödig. Out of turn 4, and importantly, not riding the curbs too much. We see many, many cars as the tyres get a little bit tired and the drivers in turn get a little bit tired, just going out over the curbs, kicking up the dust, and the long shot shows some drivers coming behind really struggle to see, but over the first of the chicanes, the Thierry Boots and chicane they go. Then Zolder's not known for a lot of ups and downs. That's the best of those. That's up over Boot and then down through the left-hand kink into the Gilles Villeneuve chicane, leaving the cone alone on the right-hand side and the markers on the left. Trying to get the cleanest exit from the corner. Now it's a wonderful sweep through turn Telamen-Bocht, which is effectively turn 11. There's a very gentle kink, which doesn't really count as a corner. There we are through that. And then a tight corner. They drop right down through the gearbox, in some categories down as low as 1st gear for turn 12. And then chicane number 3. This is more of a sweeper than chicane, the Jochen Rindt-Bocht. And then the blast down to complete the lap through one more chicane. Gap between 1st and 2nd, by the way, 0.590. We're trading in thousandths of a second. Finley Hutchinson tucked in behind, 1.3 seconds back, and those behind really started to kick up the dust out of turn 12. Good to see one of the Camaros, one of the 2 Camaros starting to make a bit of a charge. not gaining position though. That's the number 18 car, in fact being muscled out of the way. And the car coming back through is number 16, regaining some of the positions that were shed early on. Markus Lungstrass, we saw him go for a spin on lap 1 out of turn 12, picking his way up the order. How high has he risen? Not enormously high, but he's gained more places, up to 26th position. Don't forget, he fell down to about 36th position. That's the system. That's number 16, and now he's got Gozier and Dest just in front of him in the number 3 Audi, one of the 4 Audis from Phoenix Racing. And it'll be a matter of time. Here is the lead battle, though. Let's take a look at race leader Will Tregurtha in front of Patrick Zamperini's Audi, then Finley Hutchinson's McLaren, Simon Knapp, and the 5th, that's Stefan Lemeray, the 37 BMW. The best of the Porsche, Nicky Leutwiler, 222 in 6th place, and tucked in behind a different shape of Porsche, the more old-fashioned, if you will, the 997 model, if you fancy, Alessandro Giovanelli. So 2 AM runners, 6th and 7th. So going very well indeed. And in behind Sam de Jong in that 31 Mercedes, that's the one turning into the corner there. Silver with the green flashes up the side. Just coming into the background of your shot there is the Mercedes I was talking about. Tucked in behind, he has got Stefan Tributini. So Milan Donci is gaining more positions. There is Donci. Don't forget he was a winner in the opening GT4 race yesterday. That number 5 Audi lost a few positions at the start, gained a few back. So he started 9th, fell to 11th, and at the end of the lap, well, he's up to 8th, and he's right on the point of here, turning into turn 1, moving into 7th. So certainly Milan Donci gaining in experience and really loving his conversion to GT4 racing. Last year he was racing in the Audi TT Cup, so different shape of car, same manufacturer, but no longer one-make racing, and you get the different points around the circuits where the different cars have their pros and cons. Do I fancy the bonnet? No, it's just the shadowing on the front of Giovanelli's Porsche that it was the bonnet was slightly askew, but now he's got to worry about Sam de Jong in the big Celestia Racing Mercedes. Hardly see it as large as it is, tucked in behind, lights flashing, but the 76 Porsche having none of that as he goes into the first chicane. So a cleaner line, but a bouncier exit. This is a chance for de Jong, but he's realised not quite enough momentum to take him past. And last year, de Jong was racing in a Allied Racing Porsche. This year, a very different car from him, no longer a Porsche Cayman, but into that big AMG Mercedes. He also raced with Team WRT in the Benelux TCR Touring Car Series, so gaining lots of valuable experience, de Jong. Bit of a mistake from Giovanelli there, out over the curbing. Didn't cost him too much momentum, but it's very beguiling for drivers to see how fast they can enter a chicane. But if you just run wide, you're not going to be quick out of the corner. Now a bid for the lead. Will Tregurtha into the corner, holds on, but just, because Patrick Zamperini, who started 3rd, got up to 2nd on the second half of the opening lap, fancied a little nibble. In fact, he's lost ground by making that attempted manoeuvre, which gives some succor to his own teammate and allows Finley Hutchinson to see what he can do about closing in. But Patrick Zamperini is far from finished, and I thought the sun might be coming out, and it certainly is now, and that will make it harder for the drivers to see through all that dust that was kicked up as the first 2 went through the opening corner. Sorry, got it wrong, out of turn 4. Zamperini spent last year on the sidelines, no racing whatsoever, but he's clearly got the bit back between his teeth. Last time he raced in the Euro GT4 Championship, he was in 2016 in the Viorba course Maserati, so different tube, a year off, different manufacturer as well, and he's really taking to the Racing 1 Audi. Doesn't know it as well as Will Tregurtha knows the race-leading Ginetta G55, because he raced one and won many GT4 races in it last year with his teammate Stuart Middleton, and he knows he's got a battle on his hands, but has it fairly under control. The gap between them on the start-finish line last time, 0.3 of a second. Around this lap, it's gone out by 10th. Well, we saw the mistake from Zamperini. Well, not a mistake, an attempted overtaking manoeuvre cost him a bit of momentum, but he does seem to be the faster of the pair, able to close right back in again before they've even competed the lap in the slipstream as they go down Zolder's start-finish straight. The gap, if it's 0.3 of a second, it is 0.3 of a second. It's going to be coming down and down again. And so Patrick Zamperini, he's sizing up where Will Tregurtha is strong, and where Will Tregurtha might have a chink in his armour. Into turn 2, we saw the very bravest drivers like Robin Friens in the Bonpland Sprint Cup race making overtaking manoeuvres into there, but you've got to be super, super committed. Meanwhile, in the pits, for the number 2 drivers, they've just got to wait and hope not only does their driver out on the circuit do a really good job and not lose ground, but also they've got to have a really tidy in-lap and out-lap, as well as a tidy pit stop. And of course, the pit stops in GT4 have a minimum mandatory time, and a lot of teams finish their work before they're allowed to, long before they're allowed to release the car. They have to have them at a standstill, but any driver who has his car released too quickly will pick up a penalty, so you could gain a second and then immediately lose a minute in time penalties. So gradually the teams learn that is a rule that needs to be adhered to. Patrick Zamperini far from the finish. Finley Hutchinson rather losing touch now. He's 2.5 seconds down from Zamperini's Audi. Then you have the 2 BMW, Simon Knapp and the driver you're looking at there, Stefan Lemeray. And then now up into 6th place, Milan Donci, lap after lap, picking up the places. As I pointed out, he started in 9th, fell to 11th on the opening lap, and is picking his way forward ever since. Phoenix Racing got quite a few Audis in this race, 4 in the race, but about 3 of those are in and around the top 10, so very, very good for the Phoenix Racing team. Giovinelli in the Porsche, still holding off Sam de Jong. Tucked in behind Sam de Jong, we've got Stefan Tribudini in the CMR Ginetta, and then in behind him we've got Nico Rindlisbacher as well in the 2nd of the McLarens. The white ones with the black bonnets there from Team GT. For a lot of these drivers, frustration will be mounting. You can get close. Well, they are close. Look at it from Giovinelli's Porsche. It's almost 6 cars nose to tail, but where any of the chasers will find a passing place remains to be seen. But it is possible, because we saw Milan Donci work his way through this pack. And the BMW joining onto the back is Razan Umbrescu. And he certainly benefits as Tribudini takes a look up the inside of the Porsche of Giovinelli. Certainly for Umbrescu, the Romanian racer, he's enjoying the sight of what he sees ahead, because there may be an opportunity when you've got cars squabbling, and these are certainly squabbling. You can get one running wide. Oh, there's a mistake. Well, there's one of the Seleslar car. No, it's not the Seleslar car. I think it's the Lechner race. No, it is a Seleslar car. Stuck at the side of the Mercedes on the exit of the chicane. Did he spin or did he simply stop? Oh, it's the Bullet Racing Mercedes, different corner. So that's coming into turn 12, and he's hit the number 26 CMR Ginetta and pitched it off. We've got to get to the root of what happened to the Mercedes that's come to a halt and is still at a standstill on the exit of the chicane. Waved yellow flags. Safety car as that's waiting to be moved. It's the number 30 car, Nicolas van Dierendonk. So a little bit of respite for Will Tregurtha in the lead of the race in the white and blue Ginetta. Patrick Zamperini will have to just hold station behind, but for Finley Hutchinson, he'll say thank you very much. He was 2.5 seconds in arrears. He was dropping off the tail of that lead battle, and he is consequently able to close back right up, as is Simon Knapp in the first of the BMWs. Likewise, Stefan Lemeray, the black nose on the Belgian Racers BMW. And then Milan Donci, thank you very much. He's saying, I've fought really hard to gain about 5 or 6 places on the circuit. Now I've got a chance to have a crack at the drivers ahead. Incident between car 26 and 33 under investigation. Well, Stephen Patrick was at the wheel of the Mercedes, Bullet Racing, and 26 was Eric Mouet. Mouet was the one we saw being clattered up the back down at turn 12. So I think a manoeuvre under braking, maybe not even an attempted manoeuvre, but 2 cars coming into contact. So all is suddenly calm at the front of the race, and certainly for Will Tregurtha it's been far from calm in the early stages of the race. He took the lead from pole position at the start, only just eked out a bit of an advantage, but as soon as Patrick Zamperini got past Finley Hutchinson, he was able to press in a way that Hutchinson hadn't in the first half of the opening lap. There have been attempted overtaking manoeuvres, or more gestures, I think one might say, from Zamperini, looking to see if he can unseat Will Tregurtha from the lead of the race, but it's all been very clean, very tidy, and it shouldn't be too long until we're back underway again. The safety car leading around the pit window, I will mention, could be open, well, will be open when the clock says 35 minutes left in the race, so just over 8 minutes left in the race. So for all of the teams, if they have their less rapid driver on board. They'll be looking to make an early pit stop, and those who've got their hot shoe on board will probably keep them out for about a further 8 or 9 minutes longer. So safety car in at the end of this lap. That is a good signal to do. So it shows the number 30 Mercedes has been hauled away from what was a potentially dangerous position on the exit of the first chicane. So it was tight at the top, but it's way, way tighter now. The car's nose to tail. They know the safety car's pulling in because the lights on the light bar on the roof of the Audi safety car have been extinguished. So looking on from the pits, all the number 2 driver just waiting for their moment. It's not going to come for a while. It's up to the number 1 drivers not to make a slip up. Nicky Leutwiler looks so he's already trying to... Well, it appears to have already overtaken number 37. How has that happened? I think that's not quite right, because he should have been line astern until the start-finish line. Come what may, Will Tregurtha leading the race. Patrick Zamperini in the Audi, tucked in behind the Ginetta, not close enough to make a move, certainly close enough to almost trade paint. Finley Hutchinson didn't read it brilliantly because he dropped back a little bit, but nothing in comparison to the way that Simon Knapp has fallen off the tail. And then in behind is Nicky Leutwiler, now in 5th place, leading the AM class, but to my eye, he passed a couple of cars before the cars have got to the start-finish straight. Oh dear, number 60, that's the Aston Martin from Academy Motorsport. That's Fiona James from Wallaroo Base Layers. And she's gone for a little rotation, can't quite get the right gear. Let's hope that can be got going again before the field comes racing round with 40 cars bearing down. She doesn't want to be sitting across the circuit. And the places have just been given back by 222. Oh good, Fiona James got it going again just in time. So Nicky Leutwiler realises that excitement got the better part of him and he's handed the places back. That's only good and fair, because he passed Stéphane Lemeray and Milan Doncha. He's trying to pass them now, but quite legitimately, and he's got inside Milan Doncha. There is going to be a bit of bodywork rubbing shortly there, but Doncha doing very well not to be clipped from behind by, I think that's Stefan Trebidini. Trebidini in the Ginetta seems to have gained a lot of ground, and 31 has been given a big thump up the rear, and unfortunately for Sam de Jong, who'd been going so well for Celleslar Racing Team, someone's used him as a braking point. And it was Giovanelli quite clearly, because the Autolando Sport Porsche, no damage to the rear, but quite possibly to the front, and you can see the rear suspension damaged on de Jong's Mercedes, so that's a shame. He'd been going very well indeed. And the safety car back out almost immediately. So there is our race leader, Will Tregurtha, tucked in behind. We have Patrick Zamperini. Hold stations at the front. It's Finley Hutchinson in 3rd, Simon Knapp in 4th. Look in the background of the shot for the silver Mercedes, about to turn into the corner from 2 cars back. Missed out the car in the middle. But the Porsche, well, the McLaren managed to get out of the way, and the Mercedes, completely unsighted, did not. So I'm afraid now it looks like we've got one driver talking to another, and I think it's fair to say that Sam de Jong is an absolutely entirely innocent party in all of that. And for Giovanelli, I'm afraid any reviews of a replay of that will not be comfortable viewing. So we just got going again, and the field will bunch up one more time, and hopefully Nicky Leutwiler will not gain another couple of places he has to hand back by getting going just too quickly. Big thump up the back, and Giovanelli is now unfortunately looking at his handiwork on the back of one of the 3 Celleslar Racing Team Mercedes. And don't forget, the team had one of the sister cars pull out to cause the first safety car period when that pulled off at the exit of the first chicane with a mechanical problem of some sort. The sister car is now out. That had been running in 8th place. Everyone else move up 2 positions because the Porsche also eliminated from that battle. And looking at the replay, all nice and tidy. There is Nicky Leutwiler about to sort of pull out of the way. Milan Doncha about to go through. Mercedes minding its own business. It's a rear shot. Well, it is a rear shot in more ways than one. Mercedes just turning into the corner, minding its own business. The McLaren staying to the left of the circuit and up the inside, and powering into the back of the Mercedes, unfortunately, was the Porsche. These things can happen, particularly when you've just had a field release and they all think this is their moment. They were closer than they'd been before the safety car came out, and they might just consider making a manoeuvre, but that one was from a long way back and will not make comfortable viewing for Giovanelli, I'm afraid. So all those behind up a position, well in fact 2 positions with those 2 cars eliminated. But for Will Tregurtha, the pit stop window is coming soon. He's sitting on that advantage of, well, it's listed as 0.8 of a second over Patrick Zamperini, but that of course is behind the safety car. It will close up as we look into the face of Jean-Louis Jasper in that number 6. That's the day-glow yellow Audi, and that has risen up the order with those demotions. It's up into 12th place. So time for the drivers to just keep their focus, keep the heat in their tyres. There is the bright yellow Audi, one we'll be riding on board with. Just a chance to glance down the order, and one of the cars that went really well in the opening lap was the Turkish entered one that's just so eye-catching in the turquoise livery, the BMW, but that's fallen down to 19th place. Started 15th, went up to about 12th on the opening few corners. So, the pit window, I'm just being told, is delayed. Message just come on the screen as well. And here is a replay of the incident. Look for the silver Mercedes, and unfortunately it's going sideways into the gravel trap. You can see the damage. You can see what did the damage, which is the Porsche. And somehow the Team GT McLaren, the meat in that sandwich at the very moment, was able to stay out of the way. Probably didn't even have a choice in the matter. Was just thinking, I'm just wide of the Mercedes, and then thump. The Mercedes was hit from behind to the front end of the Porsche, rising in the air. Can't see if there was any front-end damage for Nico Rindlisbacher in the 87 McLaren. I don't think there was. I think he was very lucky indeed. But Sam de Jong, quite the reverse. Very, very unlucky. There's the message on the screen. Pit window delayed. It was due in 1 minute and 44 seconds, due to open for a 10-minute period of being open before it slammed shut again. So for all the crews, they'll be passing messages to their drivers as fast as they can, because some of them would already have been planning to come in as soon as the pit window opens. But that is going to be delayed for now, while the Mercedes and the Porsche are moved to places of safety. So we started in brightish condition. We're now in full sunshine here at Zolder. Not as hot as yesterday afternoon when it felt like a summer's day. But the flatbed truck's just rising over boot to go down to the Gilles Villeneuve chicane to remove the Porsche and the Mercedes. They've only just got the flatbed trucks back to the pits. One's just coming in, one of the flatbeds just coming in with the number 30 Mercedes that had caused the first safety car period when it stopped out of the first chicane, and there go the other trucks. They're very, very quick at doing their work here at Zolder. It's often key to have openings that they can remove them from the side of the circuit, but for the drivers at the front of the field, in fact the drivers the whole way down the field now, it's all about just keeping their focus, being quite sure, and if the team's in contact, the team's telling them the pit window is not opening in 25 seconds, which it was originally due to do, but we will let you know when it's open. Right now, keep your heat in your tyres and keep as close as you can to the driver in front. Don't want the field spreading out, and it does tend to do that behind a safety car. The front few get close, but then some drivers aren't quite on it as much as others, and they allow gaps to open up, and that really isn't to the favour of those at the tail end of the line. It's a very long line, still about 38 cars out there running behind this safety car. The pit window should have opened, but as you can see on the screen, pit window delayed. As soon as we get a message, we will let you know when the opening will be, but it won't be under the safety car. So it's all dictated by how long it takes to move those two stricken cars. The Auto Orlando Sport Porsche, which was the assailant, and unfortunately the car that was thumped down at the Gilles Villeneuve chicane, number 31, Sam de Jong driven Mercedes. Can't see them in the gravel trap. They went through the gravel trap and beyond, but heavy damage to the two of them. For the number 2 drivers, standing in the pits, no doubt jumping from foot to foot in that sort of nervous way that drivers have before they go back out into a race, all in the hands of their teammates at the moment. Now, this is not good viewing if you're a fan of Sam de Jong and the Salazar Racing team, minding his own business. In the middle of that pack, look for the silver Mercedes. Suddenly the tail comes around. The reason for that is from 2 cars back, probably 2 car lengths back, came Giovanelli in the Porsche and thumped him very hard indeed, as you can see, to the damage to both cars. The McLaren going through the trap is Nico Rindlisbacher, who was left with absolutely nowhere to go, and somehow, I really don't know how, he probably doesn't know how, avoided an unfortunate clash just as we got going racing again after the first safety car period had come to an end. But you mix yesterday 44 cars, today 42 cars on a track like Zolder. It's a track that is a magnet for incidents, and they were extremely well behaved, and someone said to me this morning they were so good yesterday, there are bound to be a couple of little scrapes today. I said I hope not, but you're probably right, and unfortunately that has proved to be the case, but the front runners running very, very cleanly indeed. Will Tregurtha leading in the HHC Motorsport Ginetta. Behind him, Patrick Zamperini in the 77 Racing 1 Audi, Finley Hutchinson in the number 10 McLaren, then 2 BMWs, Simon Knapp, Stefan Lemeret, Milen Donci, the number 5 Audi racer, in 6th place, ground his way back towards the front of the field. He won the race. He's going to hand over to the driver who started yesterday's race from pole position, Nikolai Moller-Madsen. And let's see if they can make it 2 wins from 2, but I'd say those up front ahead of them are enjoying their advantage at the moment. It's not being extended, of course, while the safety car is out. The safety car is still out. The lights are still flashing on the roof of the safety car, so it's not coming in just yet. Pit lane remains closed at the moment. And when it opens, there will still be the full 10 minutes. They're simply starting later. So the drivers who get the second leg of the race won't be doing as much racing as some of them might have hoped. Some of them might have hoped for about 33 minutes of racing after their pit stops have been completed, those that came in on the earliest opportunity. And again, when you get a chance to look at these cars going out around the circuit, you can just see as the Mercedes is onto the flatbed. I don't know where the closest point at which that can be removed through a gap in the wall from the circuit is, but they can't reverse it onto the track until the end of this incredibly long train of GT4 cars come through. We're looking at the midfield here, the number 4 car just gone through. That's Helmut Rodig. He's in 17th position. No, he's not. He's in, sorry, 14th position. So still another 20 or so cars to come through the Villeneuve chicane before that flatbed can start moving. Used to seeing KTM crossbows at the very sharp end of this field, but over the years they've started to slide a little bit back down the order, but we've still had some exceptional performances from them this year. And yesterday, Reinhard Koffer in the number 22 entry went very, very well indeed. His teammate Laura Kreihammer, though, is in 26th position, so do expect to see him move forward. But the march of time and the arrival of new manufacturers has meant that KTM crossbow getting sort of long in the tooth. It's still a fantastic racing car, but the cars that have come in more recently have more developments behind them. They've learned the lessons, but I'm just looking for the top crossbow. It's in number 24, Gottfried Pilz, down in 17th place. Austrian racer, he's sharing with Polish racer Maciej Drescher. New pit window will be between 11:31, which is in 3 minutes, until 11:41, so a little while yet. And as you can see, incidents between certain cars under investigation. Car 31 was the one that got thumped up the back. Car 87 was the one that somehow escaped. There is car 31, the Mercedes, rescued from the circuit. So it does mean, I don't think there was any debris on the track. The Porsche is brought in as well and taken away to a place of safety that the safety car should be in very soon indeed. But it's no surprise that incident that caused the safety car will be under investigation. And I'm afraid for Alessandro Giovanelli, the replays, well, they sort of tell the story unless he can come up with some very, very convincing excuse that I can't think of at the moment. So I'm afraid that the blame has to land in his lap. He does know Orlando Sport Porsches very well. This is his 3rd season racing with them, but I think it might have just been a heat of the moment, trying to seize whatever opportunity he could, but you'd have to say it was from a little further back than he would have wanted. Safety car in at the end of this lap. There is the message on the screen, and there is the Ginetta leading them around, and Will Tregurtha backing them up as much as he can, so they're going to be nose to tail, but he's the one that can decide when to go. No overtaking before the start-finish line, just approaching turns 15 and 16, the Jackie box, the left-right chicane onto the start-finish straight, and there are a good 20 plus cars on that stretch alone, probably 30 in fact. So now the hammer is down. There will be an overtaking for the start-finish line, but it's been a good restart for Will Tregurtha, and again Patrick Zamperini hands with him, and again the super sleek McLaren loses out in the acceleration down the start-finish straight. Finley Hutchinson will probably close in all over again, but the first two seem to be the quickest cars out there. But importantly, the faster of the pair is probably the Audi in the hands of Patrick Zamperini, but he has to find a way past if he's going to make the most of the speed of that car. And all behind seem to sweep very nicely through the opening corner. And I think at the end of this lap, first the cars can come in when their pit window is open. which is in 40 seconds. That should just about tally. There's the Porsche Cayman with the big red stripes up the middle. Nicky Leutviller, top AM runner. Top Pro-Am runner, of course, is in second place, bidding for the lead of the race. That's Patrick Zamperini. So the three classes really, really mixed up. And Nicky Leutviller knows Porsche Caymans terribly well. Very good line through the Villeneuve chicane there from Wiltshire Gerthen. He's opened out a bit of an advantage. He was nose to tail through turn one, but by the time they got through the chicane, he had a really tight line. It wasn't replicated by Zamperini, who was under pressure from Finley Hutchinson. You get the longer straights and the McLaren closes right in on the Audi, and then in the fiddly stuff, it's an out of corners, doesn't seem to have quite as much grunt. But other circuits, I think we'll see different cars coming to the front simply because their performance characteristics are more suited to faster sweeps, and that is something you really don't get at Zolder. And Hutchinson decides to be the first of the front runners to come in. In fact, the first of the top 10, the only one of the top 10 to come in. So from third place, he's handing over as soon as he can. The number 6 Audi coming in as well, and Jörg Wiebahn will take that over from Jean-Louis Jasper. But it'll be Ricardo van der Ende. Don't forget, they finished second yesterday, who will take over from Finley Hutchinson. They'll have a nice, clean, clear pit lane in which to make their stops. At 87, Nico Rindisbacher, the driver, who was so super lucky, having a down at the incident at the chicane, dicing away with Stefan Tribudini, but the CMR Ginetta stays just in front. Great racing there on the restart. Gap between first and second, halfway around the lap. Half a second gained by Patrick Zamperini by Wiltshire Gerthen. There are the early pit stoppers. Number 3, that was brought in by Gozi Rodes, Cedric Freiberghaus to take it out. Number 6, sister car, but in the bright yellow, Jörg Wiebahn to take that over. And now the move has worked for Nico Rindisbacher. Before they got to the first chicane, he's moved his McLaren Team GT up ahead of Stefan Tribudini's CMR Ginetta. Tucked in behind now, we've got Ravzan Umbarescu, who's fancying his chances in his BMW. 37, Stefan Lemeray. Belgian racer in 4th place. Milen Doncic now pushing very hard. Doncic in the number 5 Audi shared victory yesterday with his teammate Nikolai Moller-Madsen, and he's actually been possibly the most impressive driver in this race as he picks his way up the order. So the pit stops do look super long, but look how that gap has opened out. But of course, the car that was in 3rd place is the one that withdrew to make its first pit stop. Simon Knapp now up to 3rd place in the number 1 BMW, entered by MDM Motorsport. Gap first to second on the start-finish line, 0.558. So Racing One Audi coming back in again. And out comes Ricardo van der Ende. So the pit stop, and he's come out, there's an interesting point, he's come out just ahead of the Ginetta and the Racing One Audi that were ahead of him before he made the pit stop. Of course, he's a whole lap down. How good will the pit stops be from the other teams? Super, super close on the track, but for Equipe Verschure, they've made their stop for one of their 2 McLarens, and it looks as though it's a very tidy one indeed. But how good it is will be seen. The proof will be proved by the HHC Motorsport Ginetta, the one you see at the bottom of your screen, in the lead of the race, and the Racing One Audi make their stops. When they'll make them, will it be early, will it be late? Well, it won't be early because they've missed the opening of the pit window, and now a lot of it will be dictated by what they see ahead of them on the track, what traffic is up in front, what might delay them. Of course, the car they're looking at is the car that was running 3rd behind them. It's made its pit stop almost an entire lap down. But where will these cars come out? Where will that Racing One Audi, once Patrick Zamperini has handed it over to Jarba Moore, be when it emerges from its pit stop? And likewise, the HHC 55 Ginetta, where will that be in the running order when Wiltshire Gerthen has handed over to Stuart Middleton? Nico Rindisbacher in that 87 McLaren, right on the tail now of the AM class leader, Nicky Leutviller. Unable to find his way past, but he's a driver who's been doing a fair bit of overtaking in the recent laps. Whole host of cars coming in now. That's the tail end of the top 10, following the lead of the Equipe Verschure McLaren that was the first of the front runners to pits. This time the pits are going to be much more crowded than they were when Finley Hutchinson brought it in to hand the McLaren over to Ricardo van der Ende. So number 5, Nikolai Moller-Madsen, there he runs out of the car, the Dane, to take over from the taller Dutch racer, which is Milen Doncic. Victory yesterday. Will they have managed to make it today? I think they'll do well to get to the podium today. I don't think they're quite close enough, but don't forget, the quicker of the drivers in that Phoenix Audi, the driver with far more GT4 experience is Nikolai Moller-Madsen. So it could pick up the pace. There's the 24 Gottfried Pilz driven KTM Crossbow. Number 5 Audi. Yesterday's race winner. The driver change has been effected. They have to wait until the minimum time for a pit stop has elapsed before the car can be pushed back and go out into the race. But for now, Ricardo van der Ende, no more pit stops for number 10, barring disasters. Running in front of the race leader, but a lap behind, if you understand. He's made his pit stop. So it's going to get quite interesting in the pit lane, and just able to pull out ahead of the McLaren that was coming in was the number 5 Audi. That was quite tight. But sometimes you look down the pit lane from a long shot and you can't quite gauge the distance. Foreshortening, in fact, the McLaren had made its pit stop and it wasn't coming in, it was going out. But number 5 didn't lose track position there. Suddenly we had Will Tregurtha, I don't know what was happening there, ran very wide out of turn 1 and kicked up the dust. You don't want to be doing that just before you come in for your pit stop. Well, at any time in the race, but what we're seeing is Ricardo van der Ende is able to pull away from him. He's a lap down, but the pit stop still owned by the Audi. But with Patrick Zamperini having gone off the tail of the Ginetta by pulling in to make a pit stop, I don't know if he was just a bit unsighted, unseated, but what we're seeing now, riding behind the Ginetta now, is that number 5 Audi. Nikolai Moller-Madsen taking no prisoners from the very second he's got in the car. I actually fancy that they had a good scrap yesterday, these two cars, albeit with Stuart Middleton doing the battling with Nikolai Moller-Madsen rather than the driver of the race leading car now, which is Will Tregurtha. Let's see what Middleton gets up to when he comes out onto the circuit. He'll be taking over that 55 Ginetta as soon as it makes its pit stop. Will it be coming in any time soon? Still got about 3.5 minutes in which to call at the pits. Zamperini's car sitting there, number 77, came in from second place, waiting for Zaba Moore to be given the signal to go out onto the circuit, and there goes the Hungarian racer. Nikolai Moller-Madsen trying to unsettle the Northeast Caravan liveried HHC Motorsport Ginetta there. Will Tregurtha staying out for one further lap, perhaps. And here comes Zaba Moore. It's a very, very long pit exit, all the way around the outside of turn 1, all the way behind its gravel trap. And some of the drivers coming out say it is very difficult. You're fairly unsighted when you come back out onto the track. And the racing line is around the outside, but you're popping onto the inside of that, and it's not always easy in these cars just to get a glance across that gravel trap, because your mirror is going to be at a totally different angle to see who is a-coming. So at the moment Nicky Leutvilla in the 222 Porsche Cayman, still leading the AM class in 4th overall, hasn't made a pit stop, of course. Nikolai Moller-Madsen, he doesn't think much of that chicane. He just bounces over the top every single lap he can. He's trying to harry the 55 Ginetta into a mistake, and the pace of the Audi is just phenomenal. Up the inside into chicane, very wise from Tregurtha. Don't contest it. There's no point. He's probably about to come in at the end of this lap from what is still the lead in the race, but trying to unwind that is the number 5 Audi. Moller-Madsen at the wheel. He's made his pit stop, and in behind you've got Zaba Moore, who's made his pit stop as well. So it's going to have to be a super tidy little run in and out of the pit for the HHC Motorsport crew. So it could be the penultimate sweep for Will Tregurtha's race. You may expect him to peel off on the left of the screen. And so the Audi, there he goes into the pit entry. So the cars that were around him have all made their pit stop, but they're a lap behind. The number 5 Audi in behind the 77 Audi, out in front of the two of them, the number 10 McLaren, now in the hands of Ricardo van der Ende. They're working their way up the time charts. There's still 3 or 4 drivers yet to make their pit stops, but they'll all be in this lap, and including in their ranks that number 55 Ginetta. So Stuart Middleton runs up. Right-hand drive car, unlike a large number of its opponents, which actually makes it easier in this pit lane, because it means the driver door that opens is on the side of the pit wall. Here's this team was in the wars yesterday, Allied Racing, 42 or 43. It's 43. It's the one that was in the wars, was off in the gravel yesterday, and that's Jan Kasperlik, who's going to hand over not quite the most pristine of cars to Hendrik still. How did it happen? Well, diving up, taking a look at the number 4 Audi, and the Audi turns in. And no, it's all still fine there, but then spins. Okay, not the biggest of impacts, but again, turn 12, a lot of drivers trying to take a little bit too much speed. That was probably on their in-lap anyhow. In fact, unfortunately for them, I think they probably already made a pit stop. Yeah, it's the second visit to the pits, so they've done their pit stop. Now, Stuart Middleton taking over the 55. Ginetta waiting for the signal when the minimum pit stop time has been elapsed, and meanwhile, potentially leading the race is Ricardo van der Ende. We will only know whether the Equipe Vauxhall McLaren has moved into the lead of the race when he comes down. He's got to take the final chicane, turns 15 and 16, and then at the same time as he's about to enter the chicane, still inside the pit speed limit, in the pit lane before the pit lane exit, is the HHC Ginetta. I fancy he has actually gained a bit of time in the pits. It's a long, long pit exit. He's not yet, you can hear his engine note, not yet got to come out on the circuit. There he is now. He's got a lead that is about 5 seconds, I think, and that means McLaren is in second place, number 10, and up to third place, Nikolai Moller-Madsen, looking very, very handy indeed in his Phoenix Racing Audi. That's the battle. You'd have to say Stuart Middleton might take a moment or two just to really get the pace going in the HHC Motorsport Ginetta, but it looks like it's his race. There's an advantage, but don't forget, we get a safety car period, and that gap will come down to absolutely nothing. But Ricardo van der Ende, second yesterday, running second today. The car here, first yesterday, running third today. What we'll have is the top 3 flipped around. The one that was first is running third, the one that was third is running first, the one that was second remains in second place, which is that Equipe Vauxhall McLaren. And then not too far behind, next up should be Jaber Moore in the 77 Audi that seems to have just lost out a little bit. Doesn't have the pace that Nikolai Moller-Madsen has. Wasn't too far behind it after their pit stops, but is losing a little bit of ground. But gaining ground most apparently. Every time you look, he's that little bit closer. Very unusual line out of turn 12 there for the McLaren for Ricardo van der Ende. Much more aggressive line around the circuit. Is there a problem for the McLaren? Well, he's certainly trying to save the tyres, not driving around the circuit with the gusto, extravagance, abandon that you have from the chaser, from Milan Doncic. And here's the race order. We've just had to change of position because Middleton leading in the Audi, but Nikolai Moller-Madsen has got past the McLaren. The McLaren does seem to be having problems, so van der Ende down to third place. There is the fourth place, Jaber Moore in the red Audi. And then we're looking for Max Cobold, who's behind the blue McLaren. He's in fifth place, and tucked in behind him, we've got Paul Rees, newcomer to the Team GT McLaren outfit, in sixth place. The top car looking for the Porsche Cayman in the AM class, 222. 10th place overall. He's just gone through ahead of those 2 BMWs. Yeah, just the front of that grouping, the trio of BMWs. So gap between first and second, Stuart Middleton to Nikolai Moller-Madsen, a whisker under 6 seconds. Who was lapping faster last time around? Well, we can't really give you a representative time because it was the out lap for Middleton, but he's got it wound up. There is the gap, there's the visual through the Villeneuve chicane. In the background, Ricardo van der Ende, he was about 1.8 seconds slower than Moller-Madsen. That's why he lost second place last time around. We'll see if the form picks up, but he's just not throwing that McLaren around in a way that you see all the other drivers having to do at this point in the race. There is the sister McLaren, really starting to fly in the hands of Sven van Leeuwen at this point in the race. Let's have a look at the replay. A problem, yes, this is into the final corner. Then we had the McLaren going wide, but he was wide on the way in, I think, because when he had a problem out of turn 12, look, he was totally off the line into the final sequence of left and right, and thank you very much, said Nikolai Moller-Madsen. Certainly quicker, wasn't making a challenge, but was presented with the place on a dish, and by the end of the following lap, Ricardo van der Ende in McLaren has lost 2.5 seconds, so he's dropping back. Who's faster? Well, I'm just looking for the pace of Jaber Moore. Will he get the Racing One Audi, started by Patrick Zamperini, up into fourth place? Not on present pace. Van der Ende is still quicker than he is. But what was 5.5 seconds at the front of the field is now 4.5 seconds. And Nikolai Moller-Madsen has time aplenty, just under quarter of an hour in this race, to home in on the race leader, and that is precisely what he's doing. Meanwhile, very, very close was the contact between that red-nosed Mercedes, so it's diving up the inside, number 33, the pro driver at the wheel now. Sorry, number 2, that's the, I thought it was the other car. It's Ivan Pereiras making progress for Lippert Motorsport and showing real determination as he hassles away just outside the top 10, just behind Mark van der Aar in the second of the MDM Motorsport BMWs. So there we have it. Pro-Am Cup honours Zolder Moore in this car here, the number 77 Racing One Audi. Huge advantage over Hamza Awega, who's in the sister car that Marcus Lundstras had in 6th place in the opening lap, went for a spin out of turn 12, fell right to the back of the field. So that's been a fantastic run back up the order for Awega. But they are a long way behind the class leader, Zolder Moore, in 4th place overall. Mark Basseg 3rd in the class, and he's in the best place of the Porsche Caymans. There is Zolder Moore in the background, the 5th place Max Cobalt's driven BMW, in behind Paul Rees, who's just joined GT4 Racing this year, raced many things, Porsche Super Cup in recent seasons, and he said he very much likes the look of this. And there's the AM class leader, not the McLaren, but it's the white, red and black 222 Porsche Cayman, sitting on a lead of 45 seconds over David Logier. I actually fancy that to come down, because Logier in the 26 Ginetta from CMI's teammate Eric Louet, not as quick, but Logier is very quick, so he'll reduce that gap, but he certainly isn't going to find 45 seconds in under 12 minutes. So Loic Villa has got the AM class very much under control. And the Ginetta has been passed in the space of no time at all. Didn't see how it happened. We've got Nikolai Moller-Madsen in front of him, if that's the number 5 Audi. No, it's the number 3 Audi. Identical livery. Thank goodness I couldn't work out how 4.5 seconds had turned to a deficit, but what it's turned into is the fact that it's a commentator's curse. 2 cars close on the track, 1 a lap down in the same livery. But anyhow, we've got away with it for now. But the Ginetta has not got away with it, because the 3 car doesn't want to get out of the way. He wants to put those cars between himself and the number 5 car. Look how similar it looks. It's the red wing mirrors on Nikolai Moller-Madsen's car, the yellow wing mirrors on the car driven by Cedric Freiberghaus. Yeah, so what's the score here? Of course, you expect your teammate to move over, which it has, but now the Mercedes is minding its own business, staying right on the racing line, and Stuart Middleton's going to need all the help he can possibly get, because he was hindered by the Phoenix Racing teammate, and already the Mercedes has just moved slightly to the side of the track. On water points, Nikolai Moller-Madsen has got such a good handle on this Phoenix Racing Audi that he can put it where he wants to put it, and he's moved up ahead of that little duo of back markers, having a fantastic battle of their own, and he's heading off all over again after Stuart Middleton, after the little scare where I got the wing mirrors the wrong way around. Yellow on the car that is the teammate, but red from the chaser from Nikolai Moller-Madsen. 1.1 seconds, you can see. Ricardo van der Ende just doesn't appear to have the pace. We saw that braking problem he had where he ceded 2nd position by running wide through, not out of the final chicane. So he's dropping away in 3rd place overall, but he's still lapping at about the same place as Zolder Moore, has a 5 and a bit second advantage over him. He should be able to hold on to that, unless whatever slight problem he has becomes greater in the remaining 10 minutes of this race. Pleased to say we started the race with 42 runners, and I think we still have 38 out on the circuit, which is absolutely fantastic. Yesterday we started with 44, big cloud to the chicane there, but I think we still got 42 to the finish, so really good driving from these GT4 racers in the European Series. Very hard work here for number 1 for Max Cobalt, because Paul Rees in the McLaren is right on his tail, and in turn Pierre-Alexandre Jean in the number 36 Ginetta looked very good yesterday, looks even better today, so this is a battle well worth keeping our eyes on. It's for 5th, 6th and 7th, but they're fighting as though it's for the lead of the race. Then there's a tiny little gap back to Gabriele Piana, who's making progress in the 111 BMW. In fact, he's just gone past Paul Scheusner. Sorry, Jacob Scherber in the Lechner Racing Mercedes. Expect that gap to grow and expect this gap to come down, because the gap between 1st and 2nd under half a second as Nikolai Moller-Madsen closes in on Stuart Middleton. This is going to be a very sweaty cockpit in the Ginetta, because it doesn't seem to have quite the ultimate pace. A very, very good driver pairing. Oh, now Paul Rees has gained a position. He's moved up ahead of Max Cobalt, the BMW that started very well on the grid, started from 4th place. has been demoted. So that's good progress from the Team GT McLaren. Started down in 14th in the hands of Nico Rindlisbacher, and he had a good stint, and Paul Rees is having an even better stint as he moves up to 5th place overall. Is there going to be a change for the lead? Oh, how sideways do you want to get your Audi there? That we've seen in previous laps. Nikolai Moller-Madsen is happy to vault that chicane. This time he very, very nearly came unstuck, and it was a massive save. Look, going in a fairly roughish, slight understeer there from the Ginetta, but the Audi fancied his chances and just hadn't done enough braking, and that was a massive save, brilliantly caught by the camera crew there. So that will be a slower first part of the lap for Nikolai Moller-Madsen, and he'll have to just recompose himself and prepare himself for another attack. But it's brought some breathing time for Stuart Middleton. He himself had a slight problem going to that first chicane, but nothing in comparison to the chasing Dane behind him. Now what we're seeing, this battle has changed behind, because the Ginetta with Pierre-Alexandre Jean has been demoted. Gabriele Piana is on a charge in 111. That's the black-nosed BMW from our Envision STS. Piana, a very impressive young driver, and I think we're going to see a lot of him through the course of this season, but certainly he is picking his way through what was a very, very tight battle. Piana, one of the handful of drivers in this series that really, in fact, he's only just scraped into his 20s, so bringing lots of youthful enthusiasm, and his next target will be the MDM Motorsport BMW right in front of him. And for Max Cobold, he's going to realise this car wasn't even terribly close to him not long ago, and now it's right on his tail, so he'll get the message of what's happening. Now the AM battle, it's all Nicky Leutwiler at the moment, but 16, this is a car that's second in the Pro-Am battle, but this is the car that spun down to the tail. Now it's swapped position because number 13 was behind, but Mark Basseng, an absolute star, has just moved into second in class. They got a bit caught up with the other traffic. Of course, it's very difficult to extract the classes sometimes when you're in the middle of a three-car battle. If two cars are in one class and one's in the other, they're all just trying to fight each other anyhow. But that battle sorted itself not in the favour of Hamza Awega in the 16 Racing 1 Audi. He's lost out and making progress and going through in the number 13 Porsche is Mark Basseng. And in between them they had Akhil Rabindra, the Indian racer, but he's in the silver class, so he's only fighting for track position, not for class position. But the Porsche's made its way through. There goes Basseng out of the chicane. And now for Hamza Awega, he's a little bit caught out behind Akhil Rabindra. And Basseng will be able to go away and nail down that, with just over 5.5 minutes, just under 5.5 minutes remaining, he will nail down that second place in the Pro-Am class. Class leader is Jabba Moore in 4th place overall in the sister car. I said to look out in the second half of the race, that's 22, it's on the charge, it's Reinhard Koffler. That car was way down the order, but Koffler is an absolute star in this KTM Crossbow, and into the top 10 he goes, into 10th place, just demoted the AM class leader, Nicky Leutwiler. And in fact, one of the fastest cars on the track at the moment is that number 22, KTM. Koffler picked it up at one point. I looked and his teammate Laura Kryhammer was down in 26th position, so that's been a good end to the stint from Kryhammer, but a fantastic attacking drive from Reinhard Koffler in the 22. So number 1, just looking at it there, that's Max Cobold. He's the company around him has changed in recent laps in the MDM Motorsport BMW. Good to see some Mercedes still in the race. It seemed a lot of the misfortunes had struck the Cellars Racing team, but their remaining car still going strongly. Just saw it going through the picture. 36 still being hustled around the circuit, but Pierre-Alexandre Jean, it seems the pace has gone out of his tyres. And has it gone out of the tyres with 4 minutes remaining of the chasing car? Nikolai Moller-Madsen still behind Stuart Middleton, but we saw him at that nary moment a couple of minutes ago through the first chicane when he oh so nearly put it into the wall on the outside of the circuit. And that's a feature here at Zolder. You have the track, you have the edge of the track, and in many places you have the wall just beyond. It's old-fashioned in the nicest way possible, but certainly if you start to drop it, you know you could be in for a little more damage that you have at the wide open spaces of some of the more modern circuits, but it does make for tight racing. And for Stuart Middleton, he's going to be watching that clock ticking down because he knows that Moller Madsen has got the pace to trouble him very, very seriously. He's just got to run a really, really defensive line because the gap was under a second on the start-finish line, 0.84 of a second to be precise. Then a huge gap back to Schaber Moore. Paul Rees. Now, what we've had in the last couple of laps is, in fact, Ricardo van der Ende is no longer in third. In fact, he's no longer in fourth. As we've been watching this sprawling lead battle, clearly whatever is a problem with that McLaren is manifesting itself. He lapped 4 seconds off the pace in the last few laps, and that is why Schaber Moore, the Pro-Am leader, is now up into third place overall, and Paul Rees up to fourth. Rees needs to, well, I don't think he's going to catch and get to the podium in that 87 McLaren, but he's 6 and a bit seconds down on Schaber Moore. But we really need to keep all eyes on this lead battle. Second race, the opening round of the 2018 GT4 European Series, and yesterday's winner is behind yesterday's third place finisher. Trying to reverse it, no dear, we've got the Mercedes stopped on the start-finish line. Well, no, on the start-finish straight, on the grid hatchings. In fact, they're going to spot it very soon. The first two coming through final corner of the lap, 55. Middleton on the left of the screen, there is a Mercedes, sort of out of harm's way, but one person who isn't out of harm's way is Stuart Middleton, because he is being attacked. It was 0.8 of a second, 0.168 of a second. The Audi tries to go to the outside line. Middleton brakes as late as he possibly dares into turn one. Does enough. There's a back marker up ahead of him. The clock is ticking away. They've got time for this lap and one more. Middleton is going to have to defend, and Nikolai Moller Madsen's going to have to choose his moment. He's probably going to choose several moments, because I don't think he's going to get by at the first attempt. He's only going to be shown the outside line, but he has the pace. He carries the speed around the outside through the fast corner of turn 3. Slightly slower at turn 4. Not too much use of the curve. That's good, because a wheel dropped over the edge into the gravel. Costs momentum. He's trying to make a move at the chicane. He's got his nose in before the chicane. Can he get braking done? Impossibly late braking, and somehow he does it. And this time it's the Ginetta vaulting over the curbs. Will that BMW get in their way? Bodywork hanging loose on the tail of that BMW on the left-hand side at the rear. Hopefully that will stay attached, but I cannot believe how easy that move appeared to be. Well done to the BMW driver. Out of the way. Middleton's got to attack back, but the sheer pace that Audi had down into the chicane, and more to the point, the Ginetta didn't have. We may well find from Middleton after the race that he simply had no brakes left, but the astonishing performance there from Nikolai Moller Madsen looks as though it's going to be 2 wins in 2 days for that number 5 Audi. But Middleton isn't finished. Out of turn 12 they go. He's not going to find any gap around the outside there, because the Audi needed all the space on the lap into the final minute of the race. Therefore, we're going to go on to one more lap. Now, if it's a braking problem, don't expect to move down into the final chicane on this lap, at least, from Middleton, who is now the chaser. He's now the hunter, not the hunted. There's been a fire on that Mercedes, unfortunately. It has been extinguished. You can see the extinguishment on the circuit. So going on to what is the final lap, he was behind, now 0.511 of a second ahead. It's Nikolai Moller Madsen. He was delighted yesterday, but even more pleased to have torn his way up the order. But Milan Doncic deserves considerable applause for his part in the opening half of this race. The way he picked his way up the order, fell as low as 11th, worked his way up. But let's take a look at this manoeuvre. Already jinking out of the slipstream of the Ginetta as he come out of turn 4, but the sheer amount of grunt the car seemed to have, the sheer amount of momentum, but perhaps also maybe has got some brake life left that isn't with the Ginetta driver, because Middleton just didn't have an answer to him there. He's staying on his tail, trying his utmost on this, the final lap, to fight back, but it looks as though it's all under control. There is the point at which the lead changed last time around. You can see that advantage was half a second on the start-finish line. It's starting to go out rather than in, so the race appears to be won for Nikolai Moller Madsen. Is there anything left in the chest, the war chest, for the Ginetta crew? The answer is no. It's the Villeneuve chicane. 31 seconds added to the total race time of car number 5. It looks like a pit stop infringement. Maybe that message had already been given before I saw it on the screen. Oh, what a late change of circumstance. That's going to pitch it. How far down the order? That's going to pitch it possibly outside the top, down to about 6th, 7th place. So it looks so suddenly, with this roll of the dice for whatever article 20.8 is, I'm afraid in the frenzy in the commentary box, I cannot tell you. So the car that's going to cross the finish line first, car number 5, here it is, coming out of the final corner for the last time, is not going to take victory in the race. Whether the driver knows that or not, I can't believe a message was already passed to Stuart Middleton and he just let the car past. Still, that Mercedes is smoking on the start-finish line, but HHC Motorsport have got the message. They've seen it there. Well, I think they've seen it. Maybe they were just happy with second place, but it looks like victory is theirs. They do need to get that fire out on the Mercedes. It appears to have sparked up again, but maybe that's just the spray of the extinguishant. So into third place, winning the Pro-Am class goes Sharban Moore, but that, of course, has moved him up to second place overall. Just going to see as Paul Rees takes what has now become third place. Moller Madsen down to fourth, down to fifth. He's going to carry on sliding. Is he going to end in seventh place? No, he's just by the skin of his teeth, ended in fifth place. So, well, what a dramatic end to the race. It was a fantastic finish just in terms of pure racing, but with the 31-second penalty for number 5, victory on the track by a second or so has ended up being fifth place. So, consternation, concern, and also you want clarification, but the HHC Motorsport crew are convinced the victory is theirs. And indeed, so it is, according to the time charts. The Pro-Am winner, Patrick Zamperini and Sharban Moore. Second place overall, Paul Rees and Nico Rindisbacher. So we've got 3 different makes of car in the top 3. Ginetta winning from Audi. There is the race-winning Ginetta. And McLaren in third place. Shout out too for Pierre-Alexandre Jean. Gone very well the last 2 days in the 36 Ginetta. And fifth place with that penalty to Nikolai Moller-Madsen. What a shame. He pushed so super hard. One presumes that Article 20.8 is a pit stop infringement. I'll wait for confirmation of that. But come what may, a 31-second penalty has cost the team that finished first on the circuit and has pitched them down to fifth overall. Of course, they all live to fight another day. Good, clean racing across 2 one-hour events. Incident and great racing aplenty. But HHC Motorsport, they were third yesterday, taking victory today. And just to run down the honours in the various classes, the AM class won by Nicky Leutwiller in 10th place overall. Is Porsche Cayman. Pro-Am class, second place finishers Patrick Zamperini and Sharban Moore. There they are coming in. And the Ginetta, Stuart Middleton just enjoying the run back to the pit lane. I've just had confirmation of the penalty for car number 5, unsafe release in the pit lane. I remember it just pulled out in front of the McLaren. I commented on it at the time, but it's the equivalent of a drive-through penalty with this long pit lane here, so 31 seconds is the time added, unfortunately, for the Phoenix Racing crew. So disappointment from Milen Donci and Nikolai Moller-Madsen, but you must say the sheer pace they have in that car. They look as though they're going to be super strong at every single round of this championship. But it's up to the other teams to fight back. So the 2 Audis in Parc Fermé there. 77, though, is the Pro-Am winner. And unfortunately for number 5 crew, they are not the overall winners. They have finished in 5th place overall. And just to complete the housekeeping, Ginetta, number 26, finished second in the AM class. And 39 moved up the order to take third. That was the 3Y Technology, BMW of Sylvain Debs and Gwenaël Delomier. But for Will Tregurtha and Stuart Middleton, he would have been very relieved about that message. But a good, strong couple of races for them. And so for the HHC Motorsport team, the Ginetta crew, they have come away with victory today. They had to fight very hard, but they were helped slightly by the penalty at the end. Time penalty, 31 seconds added to the car that hunted them down, moved past them with a lap or so to go, which was the Phoenix Racing Audi. But rules are rules, and when you get a tight, busy pit lane, you can have these little incidents. Schrader Motorsport very happy with their life up and down the pit lane. They've had a good run this weekend, because Mark Bassing went very strongly indeed for them and moved up to second place in the Pro-Am class, and Hamza Away got third in class. Stories to tell up and down the pit lane, but let's go down and have an interview with our race winners, Will Tregurtha, who started, and Stuart Middleton, who came home to victory.
Well done, that was quite the race.
Yeah, hell of a result for us. Yeah, really happy with that result. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, to come here and race here for the first time, and first time racing in this championship and get a win in the first meeting is just incredible. So yeah, thank you so much to everybody at HHC Motorsport, you know, my amazing teammate Will, and yeah, just everybody involved. It's been amazing.
Was it really tough watching your teammate right at the end there?
It was, because Moller-Madsen was closing in and it was getting quite tense, but Stuart stayed strong and just really happy. Great weekend, a really good start to the championship as well, so really happy.
Perfect. Congratulations. Thanks.
So indeed, Will Tregurtha pointing out just how good it is to come here. And as Stuart Middleton said, their first time here, first time in the championship, but a third followed by a first. So they've pocketed some very, very useful points. Looking down at the cars gathered in Parc Fermé, the class ranked drivers, you can see, great colourful scene, but they're the two names at the top, Will Tregurtha and Stuart Middleton, eventually winning by 20 seconds by dint of that number 5 Audi being shifted down the race order. Patrick Zamperini, Zava Moore finishing in second place. Third place, Nico Rindlisbacher and Paul Rees in their Team GT McLaren. Pierre-Alexandre Jean, Stefan Tribudini, another Ginetta in fourth place. Milan Donci, Nikolai Moller-Madsen with that 31 second penalty, just coming home ahead of Simon Knapp and Max Cobalt in their BMW. Bates, Gaviska and Nico Metzel, they moved up the order very well indeed to finish 7th overall. And look, with the combined times of 1 hour of racing, the top 24 covered by just over 1.5, just not even 1.5 minutes. Super, super tight. A lot of drivers have gained a lot of experience, a lot of people coming new to GT4 this weekend, but we started with 42 cars today, and at the finish we still had 35 of them running. Super close racing, and hats off at the moment to the HHC Motorsport Ginetta crew, because they had a fantastic score this weekend. But we've seen the pace of the number 5 Phoenix Racing Audi. It took victory yesterday, lost victory today, right in the pack. Looking back at the start of the race, Will Tregurtha got a very good start as they headed down to the first corner. Amazingly, 42 cars behaved so nicely that not one of them decided to jump into the gravel trap on the outside. They kicked up a bit of dust, but they stayed on the black stuff, which is just what the doctor ordered. Great mix of cars, BMWs, Audis, KTMs, McLarens, Audis. And at the front, the Ginetta. In the middle, we had the Porsche, and this was a car that was to lead to a safety car period later in the race, one of the old-fashioned 997s. The Mercedes going very well indeed. That's one from the Celleslar Racing team, Sam de Jong, and that was a car that was going to be in the wars later on. 77 going very well in the hands of Patrick Zamperini. Stuart Middleton waiting in the pit lane for Will Tregurtha to come in from the lead. And this is the moment where the 31 Mercedes was given a big, solid thump up the rear by the 76 Porsche. And I'm afraid for Giovanelli, that doesn't make good viewing. He was the assailant there. And you can see how Sam de Jong was less than happy about the contact there at the second chicane. On the restart, big push from Zamperini in the red Audi, but Tregurtha held fair. Right in the middle of all the battle, leading the AM class by a country mile, was Nicky Leutwiler in the 222 Porsche. Then came the time of the pit stops. And then unfortunately we had some clashes later in race 43, the innocent bystander when someone spun in front of him and damaged the 43 Cayman. In came Will Tregurtha to hand over Stuart Middleton. There was 43 being given that clout. Not his fault. The number 4 Audi span just in front of it. And then number 10, Ricardo van der Ende, seemed to run out of brakes, got it wrong and lost second place at the final corner. There is the save of the race from Nikolai Moller-Madsen, right on the tail of Stuart Middleton. Mark Bassing making progress in the Pro-Am class, up into second place in class. There in the number 13 Porsche, but the charge was on from Nikolai Moller-Madsen. There, the most outstanding outbraking manoeuvre into the chicane, where he'd got it so sideways a couple of laps earlier, through to victory, but unbeknownst to him, until possibly the final lap, he'd been hit with a 31-second penalty, and that cost him overall victory, shifted them down to 5th place overall. So now the drivers waiting to be called up to the podium after an enthralling race, the second race here at Zolder. Yesterday in bright sunshine, today in bright sunshine, so a great start to the championship. Now we're looking at the drivers coming up to take the AM class honours. Nicky Leutwiler going to the top step of the podium. 26 in second place in the AM class was Eric Mouet and David Loger, and 39 third to the finish in class, which was Sylvain Debs and Gwenaël Delomier. In fact, what we're looking at there, I beg your pardon, are the class winners in each of the classes. So we've got watches being presented to all of them. Now we're waiting for the full class presentations. Plenty to aim for in the GT4 European Series. And how nice for them to be able to sit back this afternoon and watch the Blancpain sprint race. A lot of the drivers have got their eyes on that for graduation in future years, but GT4 has been proving such a strong supporting category, growing and growing across the years.
sont là. In second position for Team GT, Nico Rensbracher and Paul Rees.
So just looking at the top three crews being called up onto the podium. Pierre-Alexandre Jean.
And Stuart Middleton.
Paul Rees and Nico Rindisbacher, and then Stuart Middleton onto the top step. These are the silver class chargers.
For our top three.
So there on the top step, Will Tregurtha and Stuart Middleton taking victory for Ginetta, Paul Rees and Nico Rindisbacher on the left, Pierre-Alexandre Jean and his teammate from the 36 entry, Stefan Tribudini.
Trophies for second place.
So two Ginetta crews in the top three there.
And Paul Rees.
And one McLaren in the middle, the grey-suited gentleman
for the race winners,
for Team GT.
Tregurtha and Stuart Middleton.
So great day there for HHC Motorsport. They had to work very, very hard. They were fairly pleased with third place yesterday, showing they were right on the pace, and to confirm it with victory today. But they know full well that Phoenix Racing will come back. The number 5 Audi crew will fancy their chances at the future rounds.
Time for your celebrations.
Woe betide the driver who doesn't get his hands on a bottle in time to open it and gets sprayed with no replies. So Team GT finally get their bottles and let rip. So I think all 6 drivers up on that podium will be very pleased with the opening rounds of the season.
Félicitations, messieurs. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Hubbub of activity, waiting for the next podium presentation. We worked through the 3 classes. Just wait for the podium to be replenished. Ready for the next group of drivers to come up, which should be the Pro-Am finishers. Here a roar of noise over the sound of all the fans, spectators and teams, because it's a busy program at Zolder and a historic race just going off onto its formation lap. But looking to the podium to see the next batch of drivers called up for their trophies after the second race of the opening round of the 2018 GT4 European Series.
And race winner in Pro-Am are Patrick Zamparini and
waiting. Patrick Zamparini and Jabba Moore called to the top step of the podium. Number 13 crew in second place, Mark Basseng and Philip Bethke, and third place the 16 crew, the second of the Racing One Audis. Hamza Awega and Marcus Lungstras. They did really well to fight their way back. And the series manager for the GT4 European Series, Max Brahms, coming out to hand out the trophies. He works really hard to get this enormous grid of cars together.
And of course the trophies for race winners in
and for Philip Bethke and Mark Basseng, their trophies, and in third place Hamza Awega and Marcus Lungstras. Did very well to fight back up the order after that spin on the opening lap. So the GT4 European Series had its opening 2 races of the first round of 2018 at Zolder. Some cracking racing, huge grids of cars, plenty of manufacturer variety. Just look at the faces of the drivers up on the podium. You can see what a wonderful start they've had to their year. Any driver wants to be celebrating up on a podium. So we look forward to future rounds of the championship. The racing has been fabulous. I'm sure it's going to get better and better as the season goes on. Do come and join us for the future rounds. For now, goodbye.